Hi and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is part one on a series of how I created this 18th century jacket using a Janet Arnold pattern, so a real extant 18th century jacket pattern. I altered it to fit me, to fit my current pregnant body, and to have this closure at center front instead of the traditional lacing with a stomacher underneath. I created this jacket to wear in my real everyday life for history bounding, and if that kind of thing interests you, then stick around. Now, this part one video is going to go over exactly how I drafted and altered the pattern, and then at the end I will show you trying on the mock-up and figuring out what changes I needed to make. In the upcoming part two, I will talk about and show the sewing process along with the pitfalls and mistakes I made along the way. Okay, so here are the two Janet Arnold patterns that I decided to use. There's this one that I used just for the center front shape, but this was the main jacket pattern I used because I loved the way the peplum looks with the pocket flaps, and I thought it was really translatable for modern wear. So this is the pattern for that one right in the middle. And then this is the pattern for the one with the center front closure that I want. I started out with the intention of using my custom bodice block, tracing it off and altering it to look like the pattern in the book. I later ended up actually just grading up the pattern from the book because it was very tricky to get it to the right shape. But here's what I was doing anyway with my traced off bodice block. I got the bottom line, the curved line. The trickiest part of this pattern was trying to figure out how to make it have no darts and no princess seams while still having, you know, the shaping that is inherent in a woman's bodice. So this was really just a bunch of trial and error. Here I'm just drawing in that original deep V neckline that the jacket has. And so I did a bunch of slashing and overlapping of the pattern and taping it, trying to get that, you know, the excess fabric that would be used up in a dart, trying to get it out of the bodice via that deep V neckline. So I would, you know, slash the pattern and then get the excess on the outside of the neckline, if that makes sense. So there was a lot of tape involved. And of course, redrawing the lines after I do that. And I held it up to my bodice block to, you know, measure if the length was okay. Because I have a fairly long torso, so I wanted to make sure it would be long enough. Okay, so there's what I ended up with. There was a lot of cutting and then, you know, overlapping because I was afraid that the neckline would gape. And I retraced it and then started again. I did at some point switch to using the graded up pattern from the book because I thought it would be easier, but it turned out to be just as difficult because this pattern was for a very small sized person and I had to add a lot of extra width. And whenever you're adding a lot of width to a pattern, it's hard to keep the original style lines the same. So this is just very challenging no matter which way you slice it. Here are my two different versions. The one on the left You can see it had a lot of alteration done, and then the one on the right was a little better. Okay, so at this point I'm just going to trace off the remainder of the pattern pieces for this jacket by manually grading them up and then altering them to fit me. I really underestimated how much trouble this was because I've had no issue about grading up corset patterns, but when it comes to a full-size garment, it's a lot more work because the pieces are so much larger and there's a lot of different pieces. So what I would do is I drew out my grid by hand, and I would just put another sheet of tracing paper over the one grid that I drew and use the same grid over and over, so I didn't have to draw it on each piece of paper. Here are the skirt peplum pieces that I drew out from the book, as well as the pocket flap. Hi everyone! So I'm here with my mock-up for the 18th century jacket, and there are several changes that will need to be made. But first of all, I would just like to get it off my chest that this was so hard to draft, this pattern. Oh my goodness. Like, first I tried to just draft it myself and get it to look like the pattern in the book, but I kind of gave up on that, and then I manually graded up the pattern itself. But then after that, it needed just massive changes to get it to be able to fit not even my pregnancy measurements, but my like non-pregnant measurements. It was just so tiny. I kept thinking, like, am I missing? Is there like a side panel in the pattern that I'm not seeing or something? So I had to add so much width, and it still doesn't meet in the center. Mind you, I wasn't intending for it to be able to fit my pregnant body. But now that I've gone to the work of making this mock-up, I think I would actually like to make a jacket that will close at center front right now, so I can wear it, you know, as it's getting cooler. So I'm going to measure this gap here and then add width accordingly to the pattern. And then there's just some little alterations that need to be made, like I'm taking a dart, I pinned a dart out of the neckline here because there was just some gaping here, and that will raise up the neckline a bit, and I might raise it up additionally after that because I want it to be wearable with my wardrobe, and I think it might look kind of funny to have a super low 18th century neckline over my normal clothes. But we'll see. And then here, I'm also going to need to take out a dart because there's this extra kind of flap up here. So I'm going to dart that out and then widen the neckline just a little bit right there because it comes in too much. And I might narrow the sleeves a little bit just down here. We'll see, because I think they're supposed to be a little more fitted than this. Also, this was just, not only was this hard to draft, but this was really hard to sew. I guess I'm just like, I have a really hard time working out what the instructions are telling me to do and how these pieces are supposed to fit together. So I'm pretty sure I sewed these cuffs on wrong. Yeah, I think I did. But at least I did the mock-up, so I got a little bit of practice. And I also have no idea how this skirt peplum is supposed to be sewn. So I kind of tried doing it two different ways on either side. I think this way is probably closer to what it should be. But as you can see, if I back up, the peplum, it comes down to like too much of a point right here. So I'll just kind of true that up so it's roughly the same length all the way around. Okay guys, so I'm gonna make those alterations to my pattern, and then stay tuned for part 2 of this series where I will be sewing the final jacket. I will probably be using an orange linen, which I'm a little nervous about, but I already bought the fabric and I don't like leaving fabric lying around. So I'm going to make that, so stay tuned for that video. It will be exciting and it will be a learning experience for everybody, including myself. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, leave your comments and questions below, and subscribe to my channel for more awesome history bounding content. Okay everybody, see you later. Bye.